whatever, 2 weeks. I'll make it for 6 now. Get that done.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, April 1st City Council meeting. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee.
Here.
Alderman Glab.
Here.
Alderman McClatchy.
Here.
Alderwoman Bassey.
Here.
Alderman Strack.
Here.
Alderman Cook.
Here.
Alderwoman Miller.
Here.
Thank you. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'll open up for public comment. John Smith has signed in. Would you like to go ahead and hit that center button, please?
Yeah. Thank you. I got both of my really minor issues, I think, settled before the meeting. One was, first of all, I'm speaking for myself as a resident of Waukegan Road and really happy that the city's going to have the Cary property. And I was just going to remind everybody, and I know it's way too early in the discussion, but Waukegan Road, where I live, we all have really short driveways. So mine's like 16 feet and the neighbor's 15. So our bumpers stick out on Waukegan Road. So I'm pretty sure the city's looking at moving an entrance to that property further south. And I think that's what the mayor told me before. So that's great, but I just wanted to remind everybody that, it's going to be cramped if you decided to use Waukegan Road. It would be very difficult. And then second, I was just going to say, I know there's been some discussion this week on the Riverwalk. We did have a bump or two, but I just wanted to assure everybody that we are way ahead of schedule and things are continuing on a very fast pace. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment? This is for items that are not on the agenda this evening. All right. Moving on to consent agenda, items 5A through 5E. Is there any council members wanting to pull items for separate consideration? Alderwoman Bassey?
C, please.
All right. Any others? All right. I am looking for a motion to approve 5A, B, D, and E. Alderman McClatchy?
I would move that we approve the consent agenda minus
C. Okay. Alderman Sand for a second.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion on these items by council. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman McClatchy.
yes.
Alderman Santee.
Yes.
Alderman Glab.
Yes.
Alderwoman Bassey.
Yes.
Alderman Strack.
Yes.
Alderman Cook.
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Items 5C was pulled by Alderwoman Bassey. March 8, 2024 City Council meeting minutes. Go ahead.
I just want to make a few updates to the minutes. When I had asked where the proceeds for the sale of 31 was going to go, if we could include that I had requested if it could be allocated to neighborhood streets or parks, I would appreciate that. And in addition to that, during the presentation of the budget, I had asked that the council receive the 24-25 park maintenance schedule for neighborhood parks, similar to what we are receiving for the streets. Thank you. That's all.
All right. Would you like to make a motion to approve 5C?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Santee?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
If there is discrepancies in the minutes, could you guys email me and I could get those taken care of before the meeting too, if you have time? I mean, I don't mind doing that either.
Of course.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Bassey?
Yes. Alderman
Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glab?
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderman Strack?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Council. Next item on the agenda is 6A, Wholesome Meyer annual mine presentation and update. Randy Willie is here to present. If you could, there you go. Floor is yours, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Jett, council members, and staff. Randy Willie, I'm the Regional Manager of Environmental and Land Services for Wholesome, which was originally acquired by Meyer Material Company back in the mid-2000s, and we've gone through a few name changes, and the name Lafarge was in front of it, but now we're back to Wholesome. As just one update, about a month ago, the parent company has decided that they want to spin off the North American portion of their global holding. So we might go through one more name change, maybe a year from now. But Wholesome will be the name that's kept for the rest of the world. And then the North American branch will be on a publicly held New York Stock Exchange venture, and I guess the name will be changed accordingly. So, but thank you for having me. I want to talk just a little bit about our operations and where we are, where we're going. I guess who's in charge of the slides? We can go to the first slide then. Oh, okay. Okay, I am now in charge of it. Okay, so this is what we used to call the McHenry West Pit when it was Meyer held. It's McHenry Sand and Gravel now. I don't know if you've had a chance to go through the slides, but just a brief overview. We cover about 750 acres of land, which we straddle Illinois Route 120. It's permitted in the city under two separate permits. The south permit actually covers a pretty good sized chunk we call Parcel A, is an industrial park east of the grade school. And then the main mine is actually in parcels B, C, D, and E west of the grade school. And then there's the north mine, which is under a separate permit. So the south piece was annexed in 1988, and we subsequently went through an amendment to the permits back in 2018 to extend the time. So we currently have up until 2026 to complete all extraction on the south pit, as well as reclaim it, which is what we're doing now, and I'll cover that. The south mine also has our main hub for processing and stockpiling and scaling, and that will remain in place as we mine the north mine. So I'll go to the next slide, but it's not advancing. Doesn't seem to be. Okay, that works. So the north mine, we actually opened up in 2004. It was annexed. It's about 157 acres, and you know, when the housing crisis came, we had just kind of started it opening up probably in 2006 and 7, and we never really got back on track to getting the material out of there. There is a tunnel that runs underneath Illinois Route 120 connecting the north to the south mine, but we really haven't been back there for a while. So we did extend the annexation terms a year ago in January under a restated agreement, and we intend to mine that as well. As part of that extension, we are allowed to keep the processing plant running on the south side as part of the entire operation, and that's through 2032. This is up against the housing development that NRB Land has to the east of us, and we work pretty well with NRB so far. I haven't really had a lot of issues with them. Back in 2019, when we did the amended annexation, this was a footprint of the south mine. The red areas in boxes A through E would represent what we call the dry mining, or the above the aquifer mining, which is probably more intense with crushing, because that's where, when the glaciers receded, they left a lot more coarse aggregate. The areas shaded or boxed in blue are the areas that we were estimating to be below water mining, which is a little bit sandier, a little bit finer, and we're going to be doing a lot more work below water, as I'll explain in a minute. As you can see, we're estimating the lake areas to be pretty good size if you look at that blue outline. Just back to the north mine, just for a planning purpose, we do anticipate building berms around the perimeter of the north mine, mining it from east to west in accordance with demand. I would have stood in front of you 6 weeks ago with a lot more elaborate plan this year concerning the north mine, but we went back to our customers earlier this year to figure out what demands they were going to have, and Ozinga is one of our big customers on the concrete side, and they're doing some maintenance on the batch plant in McHenry, so they've shifted some of their work back to our Algonquin operation. So we're not going to need to mine as much as we originally thought, and therefore we've scrapped mining on the north pit this year. We're going to concentrate on the south pit because we have a deadline coming up in a couple of years. Well, now it's going backwards. Let's try it again. It's got a mind of its own. Okay. So really, for the rest of this discussion, we're going to talk about the south mine. And this was a slide that was in your deck a year ago, which shows where we were in the fall of 2022. So you can see that triangular piece represents the last of the dry mining, or at least most of the last of the dry mining, which we pretty much took out in the last 12 months. Just as a refresher, we have to keep the crushing equipment 500 feet or more from the property line, which is not a problem. Our crushing hours are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is not a problem. I don't think we ever got close to 7 p.m. We're early risers, but you know, unless there's a demand for a certain product for a certain day, you wouldn't see us out there probably past 6 p.m. on any day. And then Saturdays, it's not every Saturday. It's when demand picks up and goes down. Our maintenance hours remain 5 to 8. That's been a carryover from the county regulations since we were annexed. We can wash 24 hours a day, but we really don't have to. It's just nice to have that option. So, and we have setbacks that we abide by all the way around the perimeter. We have residents in Wood Creek and Glacier Ridge and Burning Tree that we respect, and hopefully are keeping them happier than maybe we were in the past. The next slide actually shows where we currently are, or at least at the end of 2023 in the South Mine, and you can see we found more material below water down in the southeast corner where the Wood Creek and Burning Tree subdivisions come together. We dig that out with a backhoe, so that it's not going to be any deeper than probably 15 feet, whatever the reach of the backhoe is. But we're going to work our way around that body. And in fact, if you look to the north and maybe a little bit to the west of where the water body is, you can see where we've actually taken dry bank down maybe a couple more feet. You can see those squares. We're always estimating when the water levels are up and down how much saturation is in the materials. Well, obviously, we're down to the floor of the pit now. So there are some times we're still going to be able to cut out some dry aggregate and run it through the crusher. And that will continue this year. So this was the 2023 extraction. Pretty much in a nutshell, we mined the rest of cell D and all of cell E, which took us up against Glacier Ridge subdivision, as close as we were going to get. And then after that we were done, we retreated and finished the rest of the year mining the wet bank, or expanding the size of that lake. That's in blue. So we have, you know, the good news is the impacts were probably limited to the dry bank because we had stripped all of the land 2 years earlier and built the berms on the perimeter, which is probably the most disruptive thing to the neighbors. Taking the wet material out is very less impactful. It's slower, it's quieter because the machine's picking up material from below water and letting it dewater. There's no real crushing because most of the material below water it's probably 90 to 95% passing through the screens instead of being crushed. And that in turn, you got less vehicle traffic, you got less vehicle turns. So even from a death standpoint, you're not stirring up a lot as you're mining below water. It's a little bit of a tortoise and a hare. So the tortoise is pretty much what's taking over now. So in 2024, as I said, we're going to continue, if I can get this to work somewhere. There it is. So this would probably be the extreme if, depending on the depth of the material, you can see where the red was, the dry bank in 2023, and the darker blue in 2023 for the wet. We're anticipating to continue moving west and north, like the plan said. I think this is maybe an overshoot by our mine planning people, but ultimately we're probably going to get the majority of our south pit mined in 2024. Maybe a little bit left in 2025, and there will be some limited crushing this year. There are some pockets we found that were actually above water a little thicker, but we'll get what we can while we have that window to do it. Again, noise is probably going to be a pretty quiet year from the mining standpoint. We'll probably mine below water this year, next year, and again, it's a backhoe operation, so you're talking about a kind of a slower process to get through, and with limited environmental concerns or impacts. We do have monitoring wells on the site We have 4 monitoring wells on the north pit and 2 on the south pit against the homes. We sample them quarterly. Ross gets those results as well. We don't anticipate any impacts beyond what we've always done, which is the water table will fluctuate with the seasons. We're probably getting towards the high water mark with a little bit of runoff this year. Last couple of slides I really want to talk about is restoration, because once we start completing areas of the south pit, it's time to restore them. So we've already had two pretty sizable contractors go up and analyze where we have dirt currently and where we need to get it in order to meet our slope requirements. And these slopes are built under the permits for the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. They're bonded. They're bonded with the state. They're bonded with the city. So we will have to restore in order to meet all of those regulations in order for them to be released. We're probably going to start in earnest this year on the south and southeast corners where we have enough dirt and we can actually just push it with a dozer and not get haul trucks involved. But now we're looking at additional materials that we will need on the south side of the woods, the wooded area that the homeowners have. That's a 10-acre wooded area. And then along the last high wall we mined, there's no material there because we just removed what we had. So we're talking about importing clean fill. We have some materials on site that were capped inventory that we probably won't sell. They might be considered out of spec. We might use those to fill the banks as well. But we're looking at a 2-year program to get the south slope of the woods and then the eastern slopes along Glacier Ridge and Woods Creek and then the corner to Burning Tree all completed. And this exhibit really just shows one of the companies that's actually, engineered and done a takeoff for the quantities that they think they need to move around. The biggest change, maybe a year from now, will be we have perimeter berms that have had topsoil on them for 20 years. And once you take those berms down from behind those houses will get a pretty clear view of our operations. Fortunately, by that time, our operations are going to be very, very far away from them because the processing plant is probably over 1,000 feet from the property lines. So this year, we'll probably step the crusher back to the 700, 800 foot range from their homes. And then by the end of the underwater mining, all of that gets taken out because that all becomes water. So we're pretty much retreating from the property lines right now. Last slide I have is really kind of a summation of where we were and we think we're going in the next year. And we're definitely on target to get our minerals out before the deadline, and we should be well on target to get everything reclaimed by the deadline, which is 2026. That's really all I have, unless you have any questions.
Alderman Santi, go ahead.
Randy, thank you very much for the presentation. Real quick, Saturdays.
Yes.
Do you have any idea how many Saturdays you were operating last year?
I don't, but I can certainly find out. I don't think it was every Saturday for sure.
Pardon me?
I know we opened on some.
Okay.
And if we ran, a lot of times they just run in the morning, and then they do maintenance to fill out the day. But I don't know, but I can get you that answer.
If
Sure.
you could pass the number on to Ross.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the other question I had, I know the north, we didn't talk much about the north, but I know we've got mining dates out too. I think on the agreement is 2032.
Correct.
A couple years back, I think you guys were doing some testing. Tell us, what you can, what you have now knowledge in regards to what type of mining or what are you going to be pulling out of that north side?
On the north mine, we drilled it, Meyer Material drilled it many years ago. And then we went back and drilled, I think about 3 years ago in certain areas.
Yes.
Because a lot of things had changed. Time. People wanted more information. You can never drill enough holes to know exactly what you have. We believe that 90% of that material is not going to be of an aggregate that you can make concrete with. So you need a coarse aggregate of 3/4 inch. We think we're going to get some, but it's drastically going to change the balance of the product mix in the mine. We're going to be more sands and pea gravels, some chips, more smaller gradations. But
So
that's
they'll
pretty,
be mining there, but it'll be sand and,
yes,
pea
and
gravel.
we're not allowed to crush there. We agreed that we wouldn't crush there.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
I
correct.
mean, we can put, everything that's on the belt can fit that's less than 6 inches. We're not going to have many 6-inch pieces. So we'll get most of it on the belt.
All right, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Randy, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Have a good one. All right, next item is 6B, is conceptual presentation by Seven Brew Coffee. Ross?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, petitioner Seven Brew Coffee is here requesting some conceptual feedback for a coffee shop at 3522 West Elm, which is adjacent to the First Midwest Bank property. It's just to the west of that. The old Bruce's Mobile gas station. I'm sure everybody's familiar with that. So, proposed coffee shop would not have any indoor seating. It's a drive-through only. They're also proposing modifications for internal traffic circulation between the subject property and the former First Midwest Bank to accommodate the use. These gentlemen are here with, I'm sorry, I forgot your names.
Chris George, David Henry.
With LFI and Seven Brew, or are you guys just Seven Brew?
Chris is with Tartan Realty Group. I represent Hoover, who's a franchisee.
Okay, perfect. They're here to give a brief,
Can you hit the mic if you don't mind, the center button? There you go, thank you.
they're here to give a brief presentation tonight and get some feedback from council, so that they know if they can make their decision whether to move forward or not. So with that, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm running the slides, just so you know.
Oh, terrific. You're running the slides?
I can run the slides.
Oh, okay, that's terrific. Okay, thank you for this opportunity to address you this evening. My name is David Henney. I'm with LFI. My colleague Eric Coons is with me as well. We are the owners of both the bank, the former Midwest Bank, as well as the corner former gas station. And of course, Chris represents Seven Brew and is with Tartan Realty. As I'm sure you all are familiar with this is the northeast corner of Richmond and Elm, highly visible corner in your community, one that has been in need of attention for quite some time now, and we're happy to have Seven Brew here with us, and hopefully we can bring that corner and the bank building back to life in short order. The property itself, the overall property, is 1.77 acres, and that's 77,000 square feet. The Who Brew or Seven Brew parcel is about 13,000, and the balance of the 64,000 feet is the bank as well as the north parking area. Our proposal is for a coffee kiosk, which again Chris is going to be able to tell you all about what they do, who they are, et cetera. And at this point in time, we're contemplating a reuse of the bank building for multifamily, and have been in discussions with a multifamily developer who would acquire that from us and then go ahead and convert it. As part of our project with Chris, I should say Seven Brew, sorry Chris, with Seven Brew, we would be modifying the roadway so that, and we'll get into that when we get to the site plan, so it makes a little more sense. The site, as I'm sure you're aware, is Zone C4 in your downtown district. The approvals that we anticipate that we would need would be a conditional use permit for the Seven Brew, as well as a plat of subdivision, really just to kind of clean up the property because it's sort of a patchwork. And we'd also like to discuss with you an incentive as part of the site work that we're going to be doing, because there's a little bit more work than was anticipated in order to make this project a reality. And if you could send us to the next screen. So this is the outline of the property in red, as you can see again, northeast corner of Richmond and Elm. You know, a bit of a patchwork with the way the parcels are laid out, so it's a little difficult to work with. But we feel like with the option to keep the bank where it is, and with a good compact user like Seven Brew, we can be relatively efficient in our usage of the land that we have. We are talking to Old National Bank just to the north, because we're going to be displacing some of their parking for the drive-through, and they'll be taking some parking within the parking area to the north in exchange for allowing those changes to happen, as Seven Brews folks who work in the building will be parking as well. And the bank to be multifamily building will have the balance of that parking, as well as the parking that remains adjacent to the bank itself. Next one, please. Just a few photos to kind of walk you through the site. The first photo is looking at the gas station and building from the south side of Elm. The lower photo is a little bit closer. Obviously, this is an image that we'd all like to see go away and be brought to a much more palatable type of appearance, as well as bring some vitality along with it. Next one, please. This is just kind of moving down the street a little bit closer, giving a little more perspective on the gas station building and the side of the existing bank, so you can get a sense of the proximity, et cetera. The next photo. This is the east-west interior drive, and we'll talk about that a little more when we get to the site plan. This is looking at it from Richmond through. You can see to the right there is the gas station. To the left, you can't quite see it, but it's the drive-through for the existing bank. And then below that is the opposite view of that same drive from Green Street. And you can see there's a dedicated lane there for the bank's drive-through, and that will be modified, which we'll look at in the site plan. Next one, thank you. This is, the top photo is what we call the Pearl Street lot, looking south, and then a little bit closer of the back side of the station. And then the next is our site plan, and this will give you a little bit of better perspective on what both Seven Brew is going to be doing, as well as what we'll be doing with the drive-through. If you recall from that previous photo, there's a dedicated lane for the bank's drive-through. That will go away, and this will simply be two-way traffic. We'll add some parking on the north side. And right now, the Pearl Street lot, it has a curbed and landscaped island that separates it from the balance of the parking. That island will go away, and there will be through traffic between the Pearl Street lot and the parking to the south. And the spaces that are adjacent to the west property line, those will be the spaces that will be dedicated for bank use. And Seven Brews folks will park wherever they see fit on the balance of the spaces. And then there'll be some modifications to the entrance on Richmond. We've engaged a traffic engineer, and they're looking at that, and they'll be helping us with any permitting that we may need to do with IDOT. And there's an existing bank sign, which sort of looks like it's on our property, but it's actually kind of a little notch that's on their property. That sign will continue to exist. And then the next one is just the same plan, but a little bit more zoomed in, and you can see how the drive-through works and the way Seven Brews improvements are laid out with their buildings, et cetera. And with that, I'll hand it to Chris. He can tell you the story of Seven Brew and also let you know a little bit more about how they do business.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for having us here today. Seven Brew is a drive-through only coffee concept. Focuses on speed as well as customer service. Founded in Arkansas, there are now over 200 locations nationwide. It's one of the fastest growing franchises in the country as well. Recently corporate headed in fusion with BlackRock. We're all very excited to continue to see the Seven Brew brand grow as well. Kind of come back to our programming. As I mentioned, we're a drive-through only concept. Our main building is 510 square feet, and then we also have a separate approximately 200 square foot remote cooler. We do have a double drive-through lane, which allows us to move people through the drive-through quickly and efficiently. We do not have your typical speaker box that most drive-through concepts do. We actually have all of our team members out in the drive-through with iPads or tablets, directly taking orders from the customers, kind of enhancing that customer experience. Predominantly, we focus our team members, which are our employees, as younger individuals, high schoolers, young 20s, trying to create a lively customer experience-focused feel from that standpoint as well. Next slide, please. Here's kind of a little quick glimpse of our menu offerings. It is all beverages. It's very straightforward, from coffee drinks, energy drinks, smoothies, teas, fizzes. We do not have any food product offerings. And as I mentioned earlier, this is all about speed. What we found nationwide is people are getting a little tired with the Starbucks line and queue, waiting 10 to 15 minutes for your specialty coffee. Our real niche in the coffee market is speed and specificity to customize to these limited options. Here's some pictures of our typical elevations that kind of relate to our prototype as well. So that's the front and the rear of the main building. It's approximately 510 square feet. And then if you go to the next slide, it's the side elevations as well. And there's a glimpse of our remote cooler that we clad in the same building facade material as the main building. There's our cooler again. And here's a pretty rendering of our concept as well. So with that, does anyone have any questions on the concept itself?
Alderman Santi, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. Normally, how many staff members are in this building at one time?
At peak times, 6 to 8 staff members. And that includes the 2 people outside taking orders.
Okay. That's all I had for coffee. Thank you.
Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking at this rendering, and how are people going to go east on 120?
If you go to the previous plan,
correct, yeah.
There we go. Okay, so there's a couple different options here. You could go up to Pearl Street. When you come out of the drive-through, you can go up to Pearl Street, come around, and then take a left out of there on to Richmond, and then make your left again. I know there's some directional controls on Green Street, but that's something that we might want to take a look at. Then it's or they could even go further north, but there are at least a few different ways in which to do that.
Okay. So you own this property now, the whole,
yes, sir.
The bank and everything?
Yes.
And you bought that from the people that were going to put 7-Eleven in?
No, we were actually part of the project back then, and 7-Eleven made a global decision to stop developing, and unfortunately, we were a victim of a larger issue.
Okay. That's it for now.
Okay. Alderman Strack?
Just a couple of quick questions. I know this is just a early rendering. Do you know what the stack capacity is in the drive-through lanes yet?
Stack capacity there, I believe, is either 18 or 20. I know we're not showing all the cars in there. Corporate standards for us to follow are a minimum of 16 on every site that we have. We shoot as a franchisee for at least 20.
Got it. And then just conceptually, if we could go back to the actual rendering of the building. My question is, you got the 2 lanes of drive up, and you said you're going to have staff people taking the orders. Mm-hmm. Where do they pick up the product?
Yeah, if you go back to the site plan, I can show you.
Sorry.
No, you are all good.
You want to do the laser?
Yeah. Actually, the color one might be a little larger.
Oh, yeah.
Nope,
Yeah,
it does not. So the entry to the drive-through is on the left side of the screen, and then they'll circle down underneath, and then where you see the cars represented on the screen, those are the double drive-through lanes. And if you can see the hashed lines, that's showing where the staff members would be providing them their drinks at that time. And there's a sliding door on the side of our building that opens up for the people to grab drinks from inside where the team members are making them to be able to hand them to people in their cars.
Got it. So you have staff members that are actually hand delivering to the vehicles
Correct.
in those 2 lanes?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Any other questions? Alderman Glab, go ahead.
Yeah, looking at this drawing, we're looking at the parking that's between you and the old bank. Is that where you intend to have your employees park?
I know we're discussing shared parking options. I don't think they've been specified reserved spots, correct? It's
Yeah,
kind of shared parking amongst the lot as everyone sees fit for our team members?
Right, it's probably going to be in what we call the Pearl Street lot, which is the lot to the north, but the south area is an option as well. They're
Okay, so
within 100 or so feet of one another.
You're basically talking, your employees will be parking off-site?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, so you have no parking for your employees. You look at all these parking lots and everything else, and you realize with redevelopment, all this could go away and be totally different.
From the parking lots that are being shown on this drawing here?
Well, you take a look at your drawing, and you show that island nicely landscaped with the parking over there, but that's not part of your property, correct?
Is this question posed for me as
Yeah.
September or the landlord? There's language in our lease agreement that protects our employees' parking rights for the duration of our lease.
Right, so the plat of subdivision is going to do a couple of things for us. It's going to clean property up, and it's going to allow Seven Brew to exist on its parcel, and the bank, I mean, we'll just call it the bank/apartment parcel to exist. And that there's going to be, in addition to the lease, because the lease is going to be with my company, right? And we're going to sell the bank property, at least at this point. The direction that we're going is that we're likely going to sell the bank and the Pearl Street lot to a multifamily developer. So Seven Brew has a lease with us, and we happen to own both. At some point, we're not going to own the bank. And what Seven Brew needs, and frankly what we need, and what the Old National needs, is an easement agreement that allows cross-access and parking for all of these parties to coexist with one another. So it'll be a recorded document, and if and when we sell the bank parcel, bank/Pearl Street parcel to somebody, it will have recorded against it the easement agreement. So when we leave the scene as it relates to the bank and Pearl Street parcel, whoever comes in and buys it can't just tell Seven Brew, sorry, you no longer have parking. They will have an easement there that will exist as long as both parties want it to.
Which could curtail the proper development of that whole property. And that's what I'm kind of getting at too, is the fact that I've looked at both corners, the old bank as well as the old gas station, that it's all basically one property. It should be developed as one whole plan and not piecemeal, because that's exactly what you're doing, is you're piecemealing that area. We need to know what's going on that entire parcel and how Seven Brew would fit in with everything else that's going to be developed there. One smaller, and I say smaller because it is less than half of what that whole property is, less than a third. One project can take and alter the other project of being as good as it could possibly be if they have all their ducks in a row and have the entire property to develop. I mean, I just look at this and I don't like the idea of such a heavy traffic in and out on a coffee place like this. If it takes off, you're going to have a lot of people in and out of there in the mornings, first thing in the morning when you probably got all your rush hour traffic. And that's one of our busiest intersections in the whole city. And do we want in and out traffic right there? I tend to wonder, slows things up. what we see now is busy enough as it is. When they expand 31 on the south end, coming all the way up Front Street and everything else, that's going to make this intersection even busier. And I just kind of tend to wonder, I mean, whether we want to even see an entrance over there of this type of in and out type business. So those are my concerns, and that's where I'll leave it at this point.
To address the first point you made, and I understand the idea and the desire for a master plan, and that's what we feel like we're doing with Seven Brew and with the bank building, is that we're setting the parameters for anybody who would want to come and develop the balance of it. And we've been in conversation with the residential developer, and they're fully aware of Seven Brew and what would come along with it. So we're trying to be diligent about making sure that we create a viable parcel for Seven Brew while leaving an opportunity for redevelopment of the bank building. And our goal is for that building to stay. We think it's an attractive building. It's a nice feature on the corner, but it's possible that it might not. And if it doesn't stay, then there are opportunities for the building to become something else, while Seven Brew still being protected.
And I understand that, but the thing is about this building is yes, it is a big, beautiful building. It's been extended on 25, well, probably 35 years, no, not even 35. 20, what is it, 90? 96, okay. So all I'm getting at, though, is it's been looked at by several different developers and everything else, and retroing a building like this would be more costly than tearing it down and rebuilding it. Am I not right, Russ? Haven't people said that? I'm not saying yes or no.
Yeah, that's a hard thing, because I don't know what they have into it. I don't know, but yes, I mean, we have had developers in the past that said no, it's too much to convert. But that doesn't mean that's that way for all of them.
Right. But all I'm getting at is to me, I feel that if you have encumbrances on the rest of this property that's off of this lot, then that just hampers anything that possibly could be redeveloped with the old bank as far as being torn down and rebuilt. And the more encumbrances they have, the less possibly that you have as far as developers looking at it. I mean, somebody could walk away just because of, let's say, eight spots that have to be reserved for their employees. I mean, I don't know. So that's my concerns with that. Like I say, there's been too many times that we've had to deal with piecemeal type development, and to me, this whole parcel should be developed as one, and putting in one business, looking at down in the future the other businesses coming in or being redeveloped. Again, there's no master plan of that whole area, and so therefore it's piecemeal. That's the way I look at it.
Alderman Bessie.
Thank you for your presentation. What will your hours of operation be?
The Seven Brew operation is 5 or 5:30 a.m. till 10 p.m.
7 days a week?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I too am a little concerned about the traffic flow. That is an extremely busy intersection, and on Saturdays it's even worse. So that's my concern, is traffic. Thanks.
Alderman Miller.
Thank you. First of all, I love the secret menu. So if you all haven't checked out their secret menu, you should check out their secret menu, because it's better than their regular menu. How long does it take from order to delivery?
Our goal is 3 minutes or less.
3 minutes or less on anything on your menu?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So you had mentioned 5 to 6 employees on peak hours. So you have I'm assuming you have 2 people stationed outside with iPads?
Correct, yes.
And then I'm assuming like 2 car hop runners?
Correct, and then there could be up to 3 to 4 more additional people inside the 510 square foot building itself making drinks.
Okay. And your other kiosks, are they on similar corner traffic pattern locations?
Yes, they are.
And it works?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So, after the discussion, I like the concept. I'm not as concerned about developing the whole site as one, because clearly we've tried to do that for a few years and it hasn't worked. So I'm all about, let's move forward and figure it out from here. So if you think you can stack 16 cars and serve coffee in 3 minutes, I'm going to give it a try, because the secret menu looks amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments by council? Alderman Santi?
Though I'm not in real estate, I guess I'd have some concerns about what Alderman Glab said about just splitting the property. I don't know if it's, I know it's a tough sell, I get it, on both sides in regards to possibly the whole piece being sold as one, and you're looking at potentially 2 owners now, well, leasing, and then you'd have an owner for the building and the other parking lot. So it's a concern, and I see that entrance, and the right in, and then you're going to be pretty much putting these people in almost a right turn. Well, they're pulling the U-turn, and doable, you know, if there's enough distance to evenly get the flow in regards to those 2 lanes. There's nothing in between the 2 lanes. That's just paint there on the design, right? You're not
Correct,
You're not
yeah.
curbing in the middle, because you know, it's all about speed. You guys want to get them their coffee. You want to get it done before 3 minutes. Guess what? Before they make the order and after they grab their product, people are in a hurry. And when I see that turn in that loop going into those 2 lanes, people are in a hurry. I just have some concerns. Would have to be through that to really understand and be comfortable with it. And at this time, it's just not there. And I guess one question, have you seeked any discussion with IDOT yet?
We're at the point now where we're having our traffic study done.
Okay.
So we need to have our arms around the data in order for us to have a meaningful conversation
With IDOT.
And we're hoping to have that analysis soon, and then we'll open that conversation.
Ross, if they were willing to take the next step, would that information have to come forward prior to would it be a planning and zoning meeting?
It would not. If the majority of city council tonight says, you know what, we like this concept and we like the location, then the next step would be planning and zoning. It would not come back to city council again.
Okay.
What I wanted to mention about IDOT is, you know, IDOT has to do a full review of this for both the Elm Street egress and ingress, and then also the Richmond Road. They look at the entire site. I feel that they're probably going to have a lot of questions about stacking and this right in here, because you're coming off of a turn lane, and if traffic starts to back up out here, things could get really hairy real quick. So I'm confident in IDOT's ability to review. That's funny I say it, right? I'm confident in IDOT's ability to review this plan and either say yes or no to it. You know, if they come back and they say, yeah, we're comfortable with this right in, right out, we feel there's enough stacking, then in my eyes, I would be comfortable, because it's a state highway. And these are engineers. I'm not an engineer. You know, these are engineers that review this. So, you know, as far as the traffic concerns go, I get it. But I would say, because it's on a state highway, we let IDOT review and make that determination. To go back to the whole uses on the property, we've had one developer looking to develop this entire property as a whole, and that was a gas station. Gas stations, we have a lot of those. And, if we can get residential use here with a coffee shop, I think that's a better use for this property than another gas station. I don't know what we're going to get to develop this site as a whole. It's kind of a unique shaped lot. But that's my opinion. I just wanted to address those two things with you. So
Also considering how much money they've invested into the property.
Right.
As in LFI, has invested in both parcels, actually.
I guess I'm not going to put it all on IDOT, but I would definitely, for me, I'd have to see that or see what they have to say here in regards to their concerns with bringing that traffic in there. Where's the nearest Seven Brew Coffee to this location, to here?
Currently open in Indianapolis, north of Milwaukee, or Jacksonville, Illinois.
Jacksonville, Illinois? Oh, okay. Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I've got concerns with that intersection, too. It's probably one of the busiest intersections in the whole county. So people pulling in and out of there, especially around rush hour, I have a concern with that. So I'm really interested to see what IDOT's going to say about this. That's where I'm at.
Alderman Miller?
Thanks. So when I look at this again, based on the conversation that we've already had, I have to think about Starbucks and what went on at Starbucks across from the Jewel, and they had to figure out their flow. And then I also think about Ride and Shine Car Wash, because it has a similar stacking process, and that car wash is about 5 minutes in duration from start to finish, from ticket to completion, and it works with the double lane coming into the site. So I think when I have to go over in my head other operations that propose something similar, I almost wish Starbucks would have had a double stack where they're at instead of just a single lane, because the single lane backs us up onto 120, and that's the problem there. I'd also like to hear Chief Burke's thoughts on this, because he's the one that's going to have to fix it if there's a problem.
Okay. Although I do think there's a lot of traffic at that intersection, I would agree with Alderman McClatchy that it is one of the busiest intersections in our town. The flow of traffic on Richmond Road between Pearl and 120, in my opinion, flows fairly smoothly. Very seldom does that section of roadway get backed up, even during rush hour. I don't know if it has to do directly with the way that the green turn arrow is opposite that intersection. So all of these traffic flows first, and then they do the green arrow to turn and go north on Richmond Road. So if you actually watch that area, it's not too often that it actually gets backed up there. A double lane stacking 20 cars plus even probably another car or two into this private drive turn in there, that's a lot of cars to stack. Even Starbucks can't stack that, and that's part of the problem they have on Richmond Road North. Obviously they're on private property there, but it is a little bit of a mess over there that we see regularly between people that are shopping at Kohl's and that area versus people that are coming to get Starbucks. So I don't have that big of a concern. I do think they're going to limit their options because, again, it's going to be hard to get going eastbound on 120, and you're not going to, if you're going to that shop, you're going to have to find your own workaround. You're going to have to go back out and go down Pearl, and you can't make a left turn off of Green, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So they'll have to work their way down to Court or Park or down to Riverside Drive to wait for a light, go over Pearl Street Bridge, something if they want to continue east. But there are options, numerous options for that.
Can you go eastbound if you cut through the parking lot and you go to Green? Can you go east?
7 a.m. to 7 p.m., it's a no left turn. And that's because of all the traffic congestion at that street. I think Alderman Glad would remember, I think we put that in 2002 or 3, that no left turn has been, council passed that ordinance. So, and that's because the traffic backs up if we don't have it.
I know you couldn't do that going north.
Both directions, yeah.
Any other questions, comments by council? Alderman Strack?
I too had concern and wanted to hear the chief's comment. I like the concept, I like what it is. The stacking capacity was certainly the first thing on my worry list because we do have issues at both of those other coffee locations, and they stack out onto pretty busy intersections. I'm interested, as Director Polaricki said, I think IDOT's got an interesting perspective here. One of my concerns, Chief, and the one thing you didn't touch on was, in that particular location on Richmond Road, you can turn left across the median to that. Now, I see that in this plan, they have a right-in, right-out only. That island would probably eliminate that, and I'm going to guess that IDOT would probably nix that in this process.
The cut through there is really designed for the fire department. It's designed for a fire engine to drive out of their parking lot and drive over median in through that alleyway if they really wanted to. But by enhancing the right in, right out only, I still think that, you know, that's an IDOT question. They're going to be the ones that are going to determine if they're still okay with that. I know Ross reviews any plans with the fire department anyways, if it gets that far. But I don't think it would be, because of their enhancement, they lose that traffic. Southbound Richmond Road wouldn't be able to access that unless they wanted to turn on Pearl and come in through Green Street, you know, through the building complex, wiggle their way around. They just have one flow, and it's northbound on Richmond Road in order to get into their business for the most part.
Yeah, so the right in, right out certainly will eliminate some of that. So that kind of makes me feel a little bit better about it too. So I do think it's a positive, from me, I think it's a positive concept. I was concerned about that stacking ability, and if you're going to get 18 cars in there, I feel a little more comfortable with that for sure. So thank you.
Alderman Cook?
Sounds good to me. You can cram that much stuff and delay all that traffic. Have at it.
Oh my gosh.
Are you being facetious, or is that, are you okay with it? Okay.
You know, I mean, I know it's a real busy intersection, and, I mean, if you don't mind driving around the block to get wherever you're going, because that's what it looks like to me, that you're driving around the block to get out after you got your coffee, depending on which way you're going, you know, so, you know, try it. What's the worst that's gonna happen? You turn it into a gas station?
Alderman Miller?
Chief Burke, how many people do you think will go north and then whip over to Maple and try to do a U-turn there?
I can't predict that. You know all this stuff. I think it would be faster for them to try to, there's a challenge turning on Maple or Grand during rush hour anyways.
Yeah.
So I think it would be easier for them. Learned behavior to me would be go through the parking lot to Green Street to Pearl up to the light and make a left and go southbound on Richmond Road then. That would be learned behavior to me. Or go right through their shared north lot, which brings them back out onto Pearl, make a left, go to the stoplight, make another left, go south. Perfect. You know, I think there'll be some learning curve there. The difference with Starbucks on 120 is it's not so much the west or the eastbound traffic. A pattern is when we merge westbound traffic trying to turn left across numerous lanes of traffic in the morning and merge into that issue. You know, and I know staff has had a conversation with Starbucks about possibly acquiring the lot next door so they could get a longer drive-through lane, maybe to help with that, alleviate that issue, but obviously it hasn't happened yet. This only doesn't have that problem because it only allows traffic in one way, northbound Richmond Road. So.
Thank you.
Alderman Cook?
Like I said, you're just gonna be going around the block. No matter how you want to get onto Illinois or 31 North, South, East on Green Street or onto 120, you're just going to have to go around the block. And you say you have that good of coffee, I think going out of your way to get it would be worth the trip, you know. So if you're willing to go along with that, and council goes along with it, I see no problem with it.
Alderman Bassey? I know you didn't. How do you feel about this? Just so we can give some direction to them.
Yeah, I just need a straw poll, like if you guys are comfortable with it or not.
No, you didn't. I called on you anyway.
Thank you. It's the principal's office here. I'm so concerned with the traffic that, you know, I would like to see what IDOT says, but at this point, I'm not very comfortable with the whole idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alderman McClatchy?
I pretty much stated what I said. I'd like to hear what IDOT has to say. Again, it's one of the busiest intersections in the whole county, not the city, and adding that traffic, that extra traffic to that area, I don't think is going to help out. So that's where I'm at.
Alderman Glab?
You know, like I say, I don't like piecemeal development, and to me, this is piecemeal, but it will be interesting to see what IDOT says. I remember when CVS came in and was the only one against full access in and out up of 120, and I lost the vote on that. But then IDOT came in and said, can't do it. So I think over here that we might see the same, or very similar. So it'll be interesting to see where it comes from.
So my question is, if IDOT does come back saying that they're okay with this, are you okay with them moving forward to the next process? That's what we need to know, because...
Not me.
Still a hard no?
Still hard.
Okay.
Alderman McClatchy?
I'm okay.
If IDOT comes back and says they're comfortable with this...
It's a great concept, but I just can't see the traffic improving, and quite frankly, I don't see IDOT approving it.
Alderman Santi?
No, I want to wait on IDOT, but I'm willing to be comfortable with this. If IDOT, says this project is doable this way, they have to sign off on everything on a state highway. They know what they're doing, I hope. And the other thing I had is, what Alderman Glab had about, splitting the property. But you know what? You're the real estate person. You're the expert there. If you're willing, because it's your property and it's your dime that is holding it, that's on your plate. I'm willing to work with you on this. I have some concerns on splitting it, but I'm willing to, look at moving forward on this if this comes up where you have that leaser and then you've got a buyer coming to us in the near future with the other building. Thank you.
So at this point, there's 4 yeses and 3 not supporting. So just so you know. As far as we're concerned, I think, we have the majority support for you to move forward. Have we met with the developer? Is that the developer that Ross and I have met with in the past? All right. So hopefully we can communicate with them again and have a discussion again. But at this point, I think there's support. Obviously, IDOT's going to control a lot of that. We all know that.
Right. One point that I would like to address is the notion of how people are going to get in, get out, make their left turns, and where they need to drive, if they need to go a block or 2 or whatever. What I would ask you to consider is that a lot of quick service restaurants, whether it's Starbucks, a 7 Brew type of use, or the fast food that is also commonplace, you often find them in shopping center environments, right? And oftentimes, when you're on the road, you might have to drive a quarter mile and make several turns to get in and to maneuver yourself around that shopping center to just get to the property where you want to be. So we're obviously a little bit different, and when we saw the red polygon, I don't want to call it a box, it's a multi-faceted polygon, really makes it a bit of a challenge for us to do a one fell swoop type of development. But when you have what we have and you do need to make a couple of turns, it's just not that dissimilar than what somebody getting coffee, hamburger, a burrito, or whatever would be accustomed to when they would go to, a big box power type center.
Thank you. Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Thank you. Just to touch on the multifamily portion of it, any idea, just a guesstimate, how many units you're looking at there?
Well, it started at a larger number and now it's a smaller number, and that obviously affects economics for us. So I'm not an expert in residential. We don't do residential, which is why we're selling and not doing it ourselves. So I'd be reluctant to throw a number out.
Yeah,
because when it
okay,
comes back, I don't want you to feel like I gave you.
I appreciate that. I guess what I'm getting at is, say if you have 30 apartments, then you're talking more parking, you know, where are they going to park?
It won't be 30.
Okay, well, I'm just throwing that.
I wish
Well,
we
that's part of that
were in that
discussion.
neighborhood,
Okay.
but it won't
All
be
right.
30.
That's part of that process when it comes forward. All right. Ross, we're good?
Yes. Are you guys comfortable?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Thank
We're
you
good,
very
thank
much
you.
for
Thank
your
you.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. All right, next item on the agenda is discussion item 6C is a conceptual presentation, drive-through restaurant, gas station, and video gaming, northwest corner of Illinois Route 31 and Bull Valley Road. Gentlemen, if you could just hit that center button on that. There you go. Ross, do you want to?
Certainly, thank you. So tonight, Fortune Group LLC is here. They're requesting conceptual feedback. This is the conceptual feedback night. Prior to submitting formal for a public hearing, they're looking at a conditional use permit to operate a drive-through restaurant, which is yet to be determined, with 24-hour gas station. This is considered a truck stop, so keep that in mind. I know you guys had that conversation a few weeks ago about truck stops. They will be requesting video gaming as part of their application. It's a total of 8 regular fueling stations, 2 diesel stations, 6,500 square foot convenience store with the drive-through end cap on it. So Cody is here from Fortune LLC with
Tom Hood, attorney.
Tom. And guys, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, counsel, for taking your time to listen to us. And from my perspective in doing this with clients, and I also happen to be the mayor of Gurnee, so I get to sit on your side to get to hear all these presentations. So I appreciate the time that you're taking and the information that's been provided. What Cody's bringing to the table is almost the opposite of what you just heard. It's farmland, basically, is that there's approximately 28 acres, the northwest corner of 31 in Bull Valley, and the proposal that Cody's bringing would be the first use at that particular location. As Ross has indicated, he's proposing a fuel station with a C-store, a relatively large C-store that's approximately 6,500 square feet, that they're also looking to have a drive-through restaurant at that same location. So certainly the benefits aren't lost on you, is that the whether it's providing sales tax or MFT or property tax or the video gaming revenues, it'll be a good revenue source for McHenry and also as well for the folks on Route 31 that would look for gas and for diesel. So if you've read the packet, I don't want to belabor that. And Cody's available to be able to talk to you about his own. He also owns another location as well in Southern Illinois, so he's an experienced operator and knows how to do it right. So let's start there.
I guess for me, I know we heard truck stop, but our goal here is not to develop a pilot. You know, it's more for, so when we do a gas station, usually they service the existing traffic. They don't usually add additional traffic to it, if that makes sense. So, you know, people aren't going out of the way to go to this gas station versus different one, versus the one in Thornton. They're not going to, you know, come over here and avoid Thornton. If they're already going to Thornton's, they're probably going that way. But, you know, we're not interested in, you know, building a parking lot or anything for trucks. You know, it's just quick in and out. We're mainly trying to service like truck trailers, you know, these, you know, construction guys with trailers in the back, those type of vehicles. We don't expect to have a bunch of like pilots, you know, with the pilot truck stop with, you know, semi trucks, you know, packed there. It's just quick in and out. So besides that, you know, we're open for questions if you have any questions.
Right. Well, it's a 3-acre site, so I mean, it's not meant to be for truck parking at all.
Right. Thank you, Cody. Any questions from council? Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just excited that something's going to happen over there. We've been talking about that site for 40 years, 30 years. Nothing. So, yeah, good luck. I think it's a good location. Yeah. So good luck. I think it's a good location.
And just to let you know, the property owner, the current property owner, they will, expand that road and parallel to Bank Drive. So they're planning to develop a road, so traffic can get in and out that way into our site. So with that developing, I think it'll bring a lot more other developers to come here too. So that is part of the deal. Yep.
Thank you. Alderman Strack.
Just a couple of quick questions. The pumps that are to the west of the property, will they be high-speed pumps or traditional pumps just creating space for trucks and trailers?
Probably high-speed pumps.
Okay.
Yeah.
And similarly, the C-store, will it be a franchise C-store? Will you be looking at a franchise here or independent?
So the C-store is independent, but it's going to be probably Shell branded.
Got it.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Alderman Glenn.
Yeah, the arm road that comes in and is adjacent, or not adjacent, but across from Bank Drive. You say that was going to be developed around that in the future?
So
that isn't part of your proposal?
So this portion, the current property owner is going to develop it. So that's part of our deal. So you're talking about the road parallel to Bank Drive, right?
We're talking about the road coming out so you could make a left on the north end. Just even with Bank Drive.
Right, so the deal is that when they develop as a fueling station, the owner of the property has to put that in to service their site. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So it will go in with the fueling station.
Okay. Now, does that mean that this will only be accessible to the gas station, or this drive to other development just north of the gas station?
No, they'll be able to put entrances and exits from other, say a fast food restaurant comes in and goes along that road somewhere, then they cut a curb cut into that.
So you're creating more left turn lane possibilities of left turns out of that roadway
right.
there.
That's the idea, right?
Besides the
correct
the trucks, and that's a concern for me. Again, 31 is going to get widened. It's going to be a lot busier.
That intersection
I'm sorry?
That intersection will not change when it's widened. That's already been built to
right.
standard.
It affects it as far as the counts of cars that will be coming through, because how much wider the road will be and more accessible from Crystal Lake all the way
Correct.
down.
I'm just saying that intersection will not be any wider.
Right. No, I get that part. I know IDOT isn't expanding everywhere. They're just uniformly taking in, so that you don't have like 176 where it all just kind of...
Yeah, I was just letting you know that when they built Charles Miller Road, they built that with
right.
the 31 expansion line.
But like I say, I mean, that...
Or are you saying that you don't want to see any more development on that corner?
I want to see development on that corner, but I don't know if a gas station is what I want to see.
Gotcha.
We've been looking at the shopping center over there for up to 2 years. And so what are we going to just settle for whatever? Because, and maybe this will spur the rest of it. I don't know. But I've got a little reservations as far as that roadway over there on the north end. And just as well, it's not much of a truck stop, but it's a truck stop enough to get video gaming and qualify for video gaming, correct? I mean,
yes.
It's the whole concept of having...
It's like selling dessert at a restaurant.
I'm sorry?
It's like selling dessert at a restaurant. You want to sell dessert, right, for extra revenue. Same thing for us.
Yeah.
Just to be honest. So.
What it would be is it would be a corner that, as Alderman McClatchy said, has been sitting there for well over 30 years, that hasn't been, the city turned them down 30 years ago with a huge townhouse development, and nothing has been really proposed since. I know there was talk about Lowe's at one time. That was probably 25 years ago. Yeah, we need some development there. Is this development I want to see? middle there, and I definitely don't like the idea that entranceway, or at least I have to think about that one as far as, because it's not just going to be for the gas station, it's also be for other development there. Makes it kind of tough. So that's where I stand on it.
Alderman Strack?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the honesty from the petitioner. Thank you. I do like the concept. I think that 456 feet that are in the buffer from the full access road gives us availability to put something else in there as well, service it from there, redevelop that space. I do think it makes sense. And again, it's an odd-sized piece. 28 acres is tough to do anything else with. So I understand why this corner has been difficult to develop. And so, again, there's something going to be here which creates an outlot availability for those, and I think that's what we need on that side of town for sure. My ward happens to be on the south edge of town, and having a large C-store would be nice because there really isn't grocery on the south side of town. So, thank you.
Any other question? Alderman Miller?
Thank you. I like the concept. I think it's appropriate for that corner. When you're leaving town and heading south, your only gas option is the BP, which you're doing the how do I get there moment to get around the corner and to the U-turn and get to the BP, or the mobile farther down. So for drivers that are going to Bull Valley to go east or west, this would be an obvious, not to kill yourself and go to the BP moment, because you'd have good access there. So I think it's a good use, and then the additional access, to Alderman Strack's point, I think does allow for future development of additional outlots that would be complementary to what could be there. My only question, Cody, have you been here before? Did you propose something else?
Yeah.
Because you look familiar.
Yeah, across the street, right next to McHenry Savings Bank, is the exact same concept, pretty much.
Got
About
it.
a year and a half ago or so.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'm
Thank you.
back.
Thank you for coming back.
He's a little gun shy. He's a little gun shy tonight. So yeah.
I'm like, I
We're
think
glad
he
that
looks-
there's some positive vibes. So thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for that.
Alderwoman Miller and I looked at each other like, wait a minute. That's before.
Yeah. All right. Any other? Alderman Santee?
Yeah, I like the concept. I've been going by that corner for 30 years now, being about a quarter mile away, and it's just been big for sale sign. Who owns the property today?
Pacini? Pacini Group?
All right, that's interesting right there, knowing the history. And we still have, I mean, there's definitely an abundance of acreage there that could be, I know, I wasn't sure if it was a Lowe's or not, but I know there were some people knocking on the door 25, 30 years ago or even further. So I'm hoping that this could be a stepping stone to other developments in on that corner. Where's your other location?
Jacksonville, Illinois, funny enough.
Just like Seven Brew.
Yeah. maybe they'll take my
Should all be buying.
We'll see.
Somebody needs to buy lotto tickets tonight or something.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you. Alderman Bassi? Sorry, did it again.
Did it again. Well, one thing I definitely like about this is that it's not going to be heavy traffic. You don't have a Lowe's or anything like that where you're going to have tons of cars. On a very selfish level, I live by that. So the less traffic I see, the happier I will be. And I live so close to the BP on Crystal Lake Blacktop, and I don't really see a lot of traffic there. So it would be nice to see something that is not heavy traffic. So I think I'm comfortable.
Thank you. Alderman Cook?
Wilson ticked on me. It seems like we have gas stations, bigger gas stations, like Four Corners of the city, because we're going to have that gas station on Ringwood Road and 120, now that the state finally blessed it. That sounds good to me. You know, we're well covered as far as the gas stations are concerned, and north, south, east, and west of the city of McHenry. I like it. Do we have to wait for the state to give their blessing on turn signals and everything?
Oh, yeah.
Just like 31, are we going to wind up waiting 2 years, 3 years, just like we had to do with Ringwood Road and all that?
Could be some time.
Ross?
Yeah, that we don't know. I think this one's a little bit easier of a site to deal with. So I hopefully, fingers crossed, it doesn't take as long. But you know, we have some good contacts, good relationships with IDOT right now. So you know, hopefully those continue, and you know, we can help them out if need be.
Yeah, thank you. I like it.
Thank you. Alderman Strack?
Well, I think the fact that the state's really working on that section right now might help us in that, because they're going to want to look at that as this expansion happens. Maybe we'll get lucky, and it could be a little shorter amount of time.
All right. Well, that's a lot more positive than last time.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
So, yeah, so at this point, you know, almost full majority of support, so. But yeah, so hopefully you're heading to the next steps, and anything that we can help with, whether it's with IDOT and all that, let us know.
Staff's been really helpful. Really appreciate your time tonight, so thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll be in touch, Cody. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Cody. All right. Next item on the agenda is 6D, is the fiscal year 24-25 budget presentation. Suzanne, it's all yours.
Spoilers. Carol and I are going to head out. I do have copies of the agenda supplement that went out, if anybody would like a hard copy. Did I look directly at you? I did. Yeah. Anyone else?
You can write notes. You can write notes on that one.
I'm going to pass a couple of those
You can keep it.
Yeah, can we keep these?
Yes, yes, you can. Yeah. Anybody else? You want one?
Sure.
Why not?
Why not? I'm here. Thank you. You have 6 minutes. I'm just kidding.
It won't be 6 minutes, but we will make it as quick as we can. Obviously, it's been a busy night already, and we have an executive session after this, so keep it brief. Obviously, we're here to answer your questions to the extent that you want to ask them. If you want to hold them and ask us tomorrow as well, that is also your option. So thank you to all of you for sitting through this evening. As you know, at our last city council meeting, we went through the bulk of the general fund, as well as water and sewer, and the recreation center fund. And so we've reviewed all of those. We're back before you this evening to talk through the remainder of the funds that are within the budget. And then hopefully by the end of the evening, we're looking for a consensus to move forward with printing and bringing back the budget for your final approval here shortly. Since we last spoke, there's only been one substantive change to the budget. It's related to the forensic tech lab. We had some reimbursements that changed. So you will see the revenues increased and the expenditures increased as well. Everything else is as you saw it last time. So in terms of the Recreation Center Fund and the Water and Sewer Fund, there have been no changes. You know, this is obviously all laid out in the agenda supplement letter that you have before you. Talking about our special revenue funds. So these are revenue funds that are legally restricted for specific types of expenditures. And so we'll just go through them one by one, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end.
First off, we have the tourism fund, which is our 5% tax on hotel stays, and those monies are dedicated to supporting tourism, so they go towards events within the city, as well as the annual dues for Naturally McHenry County. So that's our tourism support group through the county. We also have the pageant fund here. The pageant fund is returning. The pageant is returning for the first time since 2019. This fund is purely donation-did, so you'll see the revenues and expenses are budgeted to hit at $4,000 this year. The band fund, that's for the city band, for the summer concerts. Again, we've got $7,000 in fund balance estimated for the end of the year. So as you can see, these are all sort of smaller funds that are very specific to particular uses. Next up is the Civil Defense Fund. We've got $6,000 in expenses budgeted for this year to repair some sirens. So that's an annual cost, from what I understand. Next up is the Alarm Board Fund. That's through the dispatch center for the radio equipment. We have a program by which all alarm users in the city pay a monthly fee into this fund, and those revenues are then dedicated for public safety related items. The Audit Fund, the ending fund balance, $972. Again, this is purely just to pay for the annual audit of the city's budget. Annexation Fund, there is a $1.6 million balance in that fund projected for the end of the fiscal year. However, obviously our friends from the mine were here earlier. This is where the mining fees that are paid in on an annual basis go. We only have one expense budgeted on an annual basis, which is to pay for the Public Works facility. That bond payment is $35,000 annually. But this money is dedicated to pay for future infrastructure improvements within the city. So now we're going into some of the funds we did touch on last time around, so some of this information may seem familiar to you. We've got MFT and local MFT. These are the same project lists that we saw last time. These obviously are funds dedicated for roads resurfacing and road maintenance projects. We'll go a little bit into the specifics for these two funds on the following page, but these are, so the Developer Donations Fund, this is whenever there's a development in town, we do have money that's paid into this fund. We've got about $1 million budgeted in terms of revenue for the upcoming fiscal year. Carolyn goes back and looks at the permit fees that we've collected over the last few years and analyzes that, and that's how we come to that number primarily. You'll see, again, we'll talk about this on the next page. In terms of expenses, we've got $950,000 in capital expenses targeted for this upcoming year, but that includes the Marine Unit building, and so there's an offsetting revenue that will kind of balance that a little bit. In terms of the TIF fund, we've got revenues budgeted for $898,000 for the upcoming year. You can't see for some reason on the bottom of this, I will do this. The ending fund balance, as we've discussed previously, is going to be in the negative. So we'll be at a $614,000 deficit for the TIF fund. But there is an omitted revenue that will come in. So, you know, we're planning, provided that there are no additional TIF projects that come forward, we should be back in the positive by next year. So again, we will do this. So these are, again, the projects that will be coming out of those funds. Developer donations, we've got the Parks Master Plan update, some playground resurfacing, skate park improvements, and just some various things. You see there the Marine Unit building is there at its full value of $461,000, but the city's commitment is at $50,000, and so the rest of that will be reimbursed to the county. In terms of the TIF projects, you see Riverwalk Phase 4, as we've talked about, that's the big one there, and then just some of the other projects that have already come before the City Council for discussion and approval. All right, any questions on those things that we've touched on so far?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I should have brought this up earlier. But the city band wants to play extra half hour. I mean, they play for like an hour and it's done. So was that added into the budget?
I am not aware.
You know anything about that, Bill?
Yeah, really? Because they were talking about, you know, they got to set up, it probably takes an hour and a half to set up and take down. They wanted to add an extra half hour to that. Oh, okay. Actually, to be honest with you, I totally forgot about it until we started talking about this. So let me, we'll see.
You can talk offline.
Yeah.
Bill. That's fine.
Yeah, we can certainly follow up, but, you know, as shown here, we do have a $7,000 positive balance in that fund, so if there's some adjustments that need to be made, we can do that easily.
I think they're talking maybe $200 a night extra, like that.
All right, thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah. As far as revenues, sales tax dollars on food and all that, considering the state's talking about getting rid of that, how's that going to affect us?
I mean, that certainly rolls a little bit more into the conversation that we had at the last city council meeting. We have talked through that, and maybe Carolyn can.
Yeah, I mean, it will be a sizable amount of money for us, so it will be some conversation that we will have to have in the future if they do decide to eliminate it.
Well, if the state eliminates it, that doesn't mean that we, with being a home rule, couldn't.
Correct.
keep it going.
We have options being home rule, so we could pass our own grocery tax.
I
We
guess
could
my
go that
question,
route, but there
though,
would be other.
Yeah. Are we prepared to move forward? Do we need to have those discussions at council so that if the state does do away with the tax on food, that we implement it so we don't have a gap?
Yeah, and
What I'm
typically when they eliminate, they would give us 3-4 months to.
Okay.
I can't say for sure
Yeah,
that they won't
there's
just say hard no
So we had
today,
that,
but
I talked to Shaylin a little bit about that, and there's definitely a time frame. What that time frame is
exactly
unknown, but there's definitely a time frame.
You know, with the state, it could be tomorrow, or it can be 2 years from now. You never know.
Yeah.
But you have to be prepared.
There's a lot of elected officials, a lot of mayors' letters that went out against this, so not that matters.
the hard thing is once we send it to the state, then it becomes a tax. So we don't want to double up on it. So that's the hard part, is the timing of the whole thing, is to make sure we want to get it in so we don't have that gap, but we don't want to double it up either, or have to take it back if they don't decide to do it.
Why don't we provide council with an update from Shaylin once we hear more, and then that way we're not having a conversation about something that we really don't have to have a conversation,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, no, we'll keep
But
we'll
get-
keep it updated.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'll make sure that Suzanne gets any updates from Shaylin, and I think
Well, you don't-
communication more too, so.
And again, we don't know as far as time framing, but if it seems like it's going to be a go for the state to do that, if Pritzker does that, I guess our attorney would tell us whether we couldn't we look at approving something before that happens, that in case of this, that this would, would fall into place?
We've done that before, where we adopted ordinances triggered upon a certain event, which is what you're talking about, but we really are taking a bit of a guess here. We're assuming this doesn't encompass home rule, first of all. So I don't know how it's going to be written. So I would take the advice of Shaylin and get as close to this as possible on timing, and then take a second look at it beforehand, if you want to discuss it at least.
We usually get an update every couple weeks to 3 weeks, so we'll make sure I get an update from her this week, and I'll send it out.
Okay, sounds cool.
Yeah. And just so council is aware, Carolyn did run some numbers, and we're estimating a loss of between $800,000 and $1 million a year if that tax is eliminated. So that does leave a pretty significant hole in our budget that we will have to figure out a way to fill. Okay. All right. Next up is our debt service funds. This is just an accounting of all of the bonds that we have outstanding right now. Only one of these is rolling off in the near future, which is for Riverwalk Phase 1. The rest of them are going to be paid for a few years. We do have some that are rolling off in 27 as well.
And just a heads up, these are just general fund funded debt service payments, not water sewer.
Any questions on that? All right, we'll talk a little bit about capital project funds. Again, most of these we talked about a little bit during the last meeting. The only one we have not touched on is the Lakewood SSA. That one is going to be rolling off in fiscal year 25-26, and that's just a pass-through for some work that was done many years ago. This is where we're going to talk a little bit again about the electricity and gas taxes. Electricity tax started in 2022, gas tax in 2023. We're looking for, there will be a minimal fund balance in the electricity tax fund. We're estimating that there will, however, be $557,000 in the gas tax fund for new projects. We do not have any projects kind of identified for that funding yet, but I'm sure that something will come up. And then as those kind of start to really see some revenues, we'll be phasing out the existing capital funds, the capital improvements fund and the capital equipment fund, and those balances will be rolled back in to the capital maintenance and equipment fund, most likely. Any questions there? All right. Then we'll talk a little bit about our enterprise funds. Obviously, we discussed the water and sewer fund at the previous meeting. There are just a few others that are out there. The capital development fund. This comes in through development fees, and these funds. So there's going to be a balance estimated of just for $5.1 million at fiscal year end for 24-25. But those funds are targeted for future expansion of the water and sewer system as that becomes necessary as development continues. So there is money there, but hopefully we'll be able to reserve that for a future need. The utility improvements fund, that one actually is in the negative by $72,000. That's just as a result of some prior projects that were completed. So we've been paying that down on a schedule, and once that is zeroed out, then that fund will most likely be going away. And then we have the Marina Operations Fund. There's a fund balance right now of $475,000 in there. This is just the marina operation. The city has a lease with a leaseholder that's paying rent on that space there. So this is just to keep up with expenses on the building and other needs for that property. Next up is our internal service funds. These are really just money we're holding for specific purposes. So we've got the employee insurance fund as well as the risk management fund. Both of those, the revenues and expenses are fairly closely matched because we obviously just want to make sure that we can keep up with those needs. And then we have our information technology fund. This is the big one, and we did talk about this at the previous meeting. All of our operating departments pay into the IT fund to pay for the IT needs of the city. And so the revenues are projected at 1.5. Again, that's all transfer. And the expenses are budgeted at 1.584. You will see that's a 15.5% increase year over year. And again, things are just becoming more expensive. All the contractual services are increasing. Everybody going to annual software service costs, and so those costs just continue to increase. We do have about $260,000 in capital scheduled for the upcoming year in the IT fund. Just computer replacements and other things. You can see the list there. And so those are things that we need to do. Obviously, the technology continues to age out, and so we have to keep up with those needs. Any questions about the proprietary funds? All right, and then we have our fiduciary funds. These are truly assets that are held for other needs. These are not really city funds. So this is our employee pre-tax medical funds and other needs that are identified through these funds. And that is all. Are there any questions on any of that? If not, we will be distributing the final budget on April 10th, provided that the City Council gives us a thumbs up to go forward this evening. And then our annual budget meeting, where the final budget will be hopefully approved, will be April 15th during the regularly scheduled City Council meeting.
Alderman Cook?
The marine operations, what property are you talking about? Where you get the monies from and everything else?
Yeah.
What does that entail? Boat slips, what?
Yeah, we have 65 slips there, overall. We have a lease that expires, I think, October 31st of this year. It's been a year-to-year lease. Like, as it stated, it's a flat fee of $41,000. I think it's $40,000 for the rental of that for the year.
Okay.
But yeah, we've had that. The former tenant was with Dees Marine with Jerry Danko, and then there was a transfer of that lease with after some issues that we had, so we have a new holder there now.
I was just confused on what property.
Yeah, right between the country club and the old Central Wastewater Treatment Plant site.
Alderman Miller?
What's the disaster recovery fund?
Which page was that?
It was, nope, not that far back. Oh, wait, one more.
Civil Defense Fund?
Go one more. The other way.
The Civil Defense Fund for natural disasters, that one?
Keep going.
Keep going?
Down.
Which way?
Down, down. Keep going. Forward. Keep going. Keep going. Right there. One back up. Information technology.
IT?
What's the disaster recovery project? Chief
Oh.
Burke?
I thought we were looking for disaster recovery funds that I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
Okay, this disaster recovery project, we can, I'll kick that one over to Chief Burke.
Yeah.
That's his department.
Sure. Over the last couple of years, we've been slowly starting to build our backup system. So this all kind of came about in 2020. We want to make sure that if something happens to this facility or our infrastructure here, that we are completely capable of resetting up city government at another location. So this has to do with 2 different cloud-based backups for our entire network, along with another backup server room at an undisclosed location, I would say at this point, on public record. So that way, the idea there is to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row. This is something that we've been working on, piecing it together one step at a time each year with a little bit of money. So that way, if something, whether or not it was through a tornado or some other type of event, we lost access to the building, we can actually reestablish government, whether or not it was at the Public Works facility or at a church or whatever, we could move, and within a matter of hours, finance could be back up and running and city government could be running.
Did we see that line item before, or was this because you redid your
It's not a
disaster
line
plan?
item, it's a subsection in the IT fund
Perfect.
that we identify for that. So that's where, hey, we need to buy a different file server so that way we can back up this data to that server, or we back up to the East Coast Cloud or the West Coast Cloud, which we do as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Alderman Sandy?
On the same page, what is, I just don't understand, core and edge switches? Is that your chief or someone? Oh, okay.
You're going to really test my IT technology.
Well, yeah, because I'm lost on that one.
Switches they're physically a piece of hardware where that transfers data back and forth. Every switch, just like a physical server, not a virtual server, has a life expectancy. So we're looking at, depending on the piece of hardware, a 3 to 7 year shelf life. As Suzanne had explained a little bit earlier, that all that stuff has to get switched out. And most of our switches are either at end of life or past end of life.
Yeah, and switches are really the backbone of your network.
Exactly. I wasn't sure. I thought maybe it was some kind of unique section of switches for vehicles or something, or a certain room, special, you know. Okay. Exactly, yes. I know tons of them. Got it.
That's our goal.
Any other questions, comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is 7A is a facade grant program. A motion to amend the facade grant program as presented. Director Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Jett. On October 17th of 2022, the council adopted a new facade grant program. In 2023, in the summer months, the council discussed amendments for the program for for 2024. As a result of these conversations, staff has made amendments to the program. We've had a lot of success with the program. We've had, last year we had 9 grants approved to maximize the funds and the number of businesses which can participate in the program. We're proposing the following amendments, reducing the grant amounts as follows. And these are all based on lineal footage of the frontage of the properties on a public way or on the Riverwalk. $5,000 for 1 to 40 feet of lineal frontage, $10,000 for 41 to 80 feet of lineal frontage, and $15,000 for 81 feet and over. Limiting property owners to $15,000 in city facade grant funding for every 5 years. Reducing the city's match to 50% as opposed to 100% match. It was $1 for dollar before. Now we're doing 50 cents for every dollar. We're proposing that. We're suggesting to prohibit sweat equity as a business match, since this was difficult to track and does not really comply with the city's prevailing wage requirements. And we're suggesting adding an application filing period currently proposed from May 15th, 2024 through June 30th of 2024, followed by a 30-day staff committee review of all the applications prior to presentation to City Council for consideration. Last year, the applications were considered on a first-come, first-considered basis and brought to City Council on that kind of term. And finally, adding a rubric to the McHenry Facade Grant Program packet, which will be utilized to score the grant applications by staff once they are submitted. We also added a frequently asked questions section was added to the grant packet. We're proposing to keep the grant funding available for all the program consistent with the last fiscal year at $100,000 proposed in the fiscal year 24-25 budget. If the council concurs with staff's analysis, it's recommended the facade grant program be amended as presented. The program would go into effect as of May 1st, 2024, if the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget passes with the $100,000 funding attached to the proposed program. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Alderman Bessie.
Thank you, Director Martin. I'm very happy to see the changes. You said last year 9 businesses received grants.
Yes.
With the changes that you're looking at now, how many additional, if we had 9 last year, how many more do you think you'd be able to do in this budget year? I know I probably should have called you and said, hey, I'm going to ask you this question, but...
It's hard to say. You know, we've been keeping track of a list of people who have called and asked for packets when this program goes through and passes City Council, and we already have 7 people on that list. I would hope we could get at least maybe 5 or 6 more, at least.
Okay, so like 15-ish.
I would hope.
Okay. No, I like that, because I think 9 was really low, and with the changes, hopefully we'll be able to have more participants.
If you recall, we started out the program with a high of $30,000.
Yes.
And I think we only had 1 business that did get the $30,000, but that was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So we're essentially cutting that in half now.
Mm-hmm.
And we did reduce it to 20, and now we're reducing it to 15, proposing reducing it to 15. So I would hope we would be able to get, like I said, 5 to 6 more would be my hope.
Okay, great. And just to confirm that the max anyone could possibly receive is $15,000.
Right, and that's a 50% match.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Right, great. Thank you so much.
And if I may, obviously the number of successful applicants will depend on the lineal footage as well.
Right.
So the mix of those who do apply is going to determine that.
Alderman Streck.
So, Director Martin, we had spoke last time when we had the review in October about one of the situations we had happen last year, which was we had a building owner and a business apply for both. Did we make any revisions to the plan as far as that? And is that something that council is on board with as well? I think we had that situation, I believe it was with Rita's.
Well, we had the Rita's got a TIF agreement approved, and they also got a
facade as well.
They didn't get a facade approved. They got a tenant improvement grant, a tenant incentive grant.
They were different. They weren't on the same deal.
Right, but we've also had commercial tenant incentive grants and TIF and facade grants approved for multiple businesses, multiple times. But they did get a TIF that was different. We haven't had that situation before. We have had the tenant improvement grant and the facade grant approved for multiple businesses before.
Okay. Yeah, my concern was we didn't have somebody buy a property in a separate entity and then open the business in another name and apply for both when the ownership was the same entity. So that was my concern, that they weren't being able to double up on that.
Yeah, this one requires the property owner has to sign off on it. But we have had that situation occur.
Okay. So could they do that though? Could have.
That has happened.
And did we make a change to it when we had that conversation previously, or are we leaving it where it was?
Well, I didn't make a change. I made a change previously to I didn't make any more additional changes to this program.
Okay. I guess that's
your concern that the building owner / business would also be able to double dip?
Yeah. So you just have it where they buy the business, or they buy the building in a corporate entity, then open the business in another corporate entity.
Like Rita's, I mean.
And again, those were two different systems, but this way, they could apply for multiples as same ownership, and we don't have there's no real way for us to block that.
Can we modify this, David? Why don't we modify that?
Probably has to come back.
And then, could we, yeah?
Did we adopt this by ordinance? Like, I don't remember.
No, we're just adopting it.
So if we...
What does that mean?
We're just amending the program as is, not by
There's
ordinance.
no ordinance.
We're not doing it by ordinance.
If it doesn't have to come back, it won't come back, but if it does, we will.
So we
can certainly, remember the policy, we can modify it.
And again, I mean, I'd love to hear other council members'
I would agree
opinions
with
as well.
you.
I want to make sure that we're not having that happen.
Alderman Sandy.
No, to follow up on this, one of those bullet points, the new bullet points that came up, I just lost my screen. Everything's going to be applied to staff in a certain window. Then they take it and they're reviewing it. And then it's going to come back to us. And so either at staff level, I mean, we've got to see it. Staff's got to see this. And
the standard has to be.
Right. We have to set some type of standard.
They're applying for a grant. Okay? Yeah, they're applying for this grant, and then it's got to be reviewed by staff. Okay, I'm not going to, well, I'll play staff for a second here. We got two on the same address, owner, LLC, different LLC, whatever it is. We can bring that back up to the applicant and say, pick one.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be smoother and more professional just to have it in there so that way they know?
But you can't say no. You can't say no if you don't have it in that way. You have to have rules around it.
When I read that bullet point, I was thinking down that line that staff's going to review everything, and they have it for a 45-day session. And then it comes to us. They're going to give it to us in some kind of order here and say, here's what we're looking at, and present each individual one to us.
We've had businesses receive 2 grants I mean,
Right, it's very simple.
I mean, we've had that situation with
It's just a
trust.
simple simple language, just change
It's easy enough to do.
I'd
Yeah,
rather have
we'll
it
go
in
back and take a
there
look at it.
than not have it, and then staff has to go back to them and say, well, you can't do this. It just puts staff in a situation too.
We can certainly amend the policy to address this,
Yeah.
just to make
All
sure
right.
that everybody's on the same page with how these will be processed. And again, to Doug's point, we are going to have an application process and an application timeline this time around. It's not going to be an ad hoc sort of, applications are just approved on their merit as they come in. There will be potentially a competitive process, and there's a rubric by which these decisions will be made for the program this year, provided that City Council thinks it's appropriate. So we'll bring it back.
Alderman Miller?
And I think, Alderman Santee, to your concern, the application has changed. So now it's very specific, identifying the applicant and the property owner. So that makes it much easier for staff to connect the dots. But I agree, it should be a policy that any one entity and/or property address can't receive more than a maximum of X in a calendar year. And that, can certainly solve the problem quickly.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Nope.
Alderman McClatchy?
If there's no other questions, I would move that we amend the facade grant program as presented.
All right. Got a motion, second? Alderman Bassi?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Discussion on this item by City Council? Alderman Strack?
Just to clarify, are we making a motion as amended, as what we've talked about by adding the language? Because Alderman McClatchy's motion is actually as presented.
Amended. As amended.
Okay, I just want to make sure we were clear on that.
Nope, yep, as amended. All right. Any other discussion by City Council?
Question I got, all right, what is it, they can't reapply for 5 years after they get a grant?
Correct.
Why would we allow them to even have another one 5 years later?
Why do we allow them?
If business changes and so want to change their sign, and so we're going to pay for that?
We just allow them to apply again after 5 years. If they choose to do additional work.
Yeah. I don't know, I think we should create one for the homeowners then. What the heck? There's a lot of homeowners we'd like to see improve their property, so why don't we have grant programs like that for that? I mean, when are we going to have enough is enough? I mean, you help out a business once, but you can't keep doing it every few years. It just doesn't make any sense.
Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Thank you. I think the whole program is to help small businesses, and that's what we're aiming at here.
The program did not start out at helping small businesses. The history of the facade grant program was it used to go to the Landmark Commission, and it was with the idea that if somebody was going to change the face of their property, would get grant money so that they would make it blend in with the past historical. And that's how the facade grant program started in the first place.
Okay, well, times have changed.
All right. Any other discussion by City Council? Alderman Strack?
Doug, thank you for the revisions and the conversation around that. I appreciate your history in that as well, so thank you.
All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bassi?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glab?
Yes.
Alderman Strack?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda is 7B is Green and Elm Street Environmental. Motion to approve not to exceed amount of $63,000 to be paid to GZA Environmental Consultants to perform further environmental testing to obtain no further remediation letter from the IEPA. Director Pawlowski.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've had previous discussions about this, and the council authorized us to bring this back for a formal approval of it. This is to clean up the Green and Elm property to continue the mitigation of the environmental issues that are on that site. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that this is the end of this one, and by the I'm hoping it doesn't even cost 63. That's the maximum amount. So But I'm asking for council to give me authority to pay for up to $63,000 moving forward so that I don't have to keep bringing invoice after invoice to you guys. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Ross. Looking for a motion to approve 7B as presented. Alderman Strack.
So moved.
Second, Alderwoman Miller.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion by City Council. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Stratt?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Massey?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Any new staff reports this evening? No? All right. I have nothing. Any City Council comments? I see none. At this time, I would ask the public to please leave the room. We are going to enter executive session to discuss purchase of real estate property for the use of public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether particular buildings or parcels should be acquired. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to enter executive session. Alderman Strack.
So moved.
Second, Alderman Santee.
Second motion.
Please call the roll.
Stratt?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Hold on, I gotta
Yes.
let somebody in.
Somebody in.
Okay.
Alderman Santee? Alderman Glad? Alderman McClatchy? Alderwoman Massey?
Here.
Alderman Strack?
Here.
Alderman Cook?
Here.
Alderwoman Miller?
Here.
All right. Next item on the agenda is 12, potential action. Item following executive session, motion to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the real estate purchase and sale contract with Chicago Title Land Trust Company, number 5457, Perry Electric contract.
To approve agenda item 12 as presented.
Thank you. Second? Alderwoman Miller?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion on this item by council? I see none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
No.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Massey?
Okay.
What?
Say, you just have to say yes.
Oh, yes.
Alderman Stratt?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is potential action, item following executive session. Looking for a motion to authorize the mayor and the city clerk to execute a real estate purchase and sale contract with Walrose LLC for the purchase of 3311 Waukegan Road, multifamily building and parcel adjacent to Cary Electric property for stated contract amount of $362,500. Alderman Strack.
So moved.
Second, Alderwoman Miller.
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion by City Council? See none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Strack?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
No.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Massey?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion to adjourn? Alderman Strack?
So moved.
Alderwoman Massey?
I second that.
Alderman Strack?
Yes.
Alderwoman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glad? Alderman McClatchy? Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Thank you, council.